What's going on, guys? KW Stout, healthmindpower.com. In this video, I want to talk about something that applies to many areas of life, but for the context of this video, I'm talking about how it applies to lifting more weight in the gym. As you're going through and as you're making progression in the gym, obviously you're always going to come to points where you hit a plateau, you're going to hit a sticking point. This is just all part of the game. So you might go for a long time where you can up the weight by 5 pounds every week, and it's great. And then eventually you'll hit a point where either physically or mentally you cannot get yourself to push past that weight. So sometimes people will actually give out mentally before physically, if not more times. And that's because it just gets so hard that you actually just don't think you can do it, and you give up too soon. You don't realize that if you had just kept pushing, you would have actually made it through. You might have barely made it through, but you would have. And so the thing that you have to realize, or the thing I'm trying to show you in this video and the related article, is that you oftentimes have to actually believe you can do it before you can actually physically do it. And if you think back to times when you've lifted weights, and say you've been in the middle of a set, as soon as those thoughts of doubt start to come into your mind, as soon as you start to think, like say for example you were going to do 12 reps and you're going through and it's getting really hard, and you start thinking, oh, maybe I can only do 10 reps. As soon as you start thinking that way, you end up doing that. As soon as you back down from 12 to 10, you end up only hitting 10. Or if you're hitting a PR, and as soon as you start to think that you can't do it, you typically physically give out. What I've found is that for the times when I hit a PR, it's the times whenever I've just completely committed in my mind that I'm going to do it beforehand, meaning that I know that it's going to take 100% physical failure to get me to stop, because I've just made up my mind that no matter how hard it is and how slow the rep moves, I'm going to do it. Those are the times when I end up hitting a big PR, and it's the times whenever I start to have any sort of doubt about not being able to do it that I'm not able to hit it. So in this article that I linked below, I've talked about 3 ways that you can kind of change your belief system around lifting more weight, because it's easy to tell you that you just have to believe you can do it. Well, how do you believe you can do something that you've never done before? It doesn't, for a lot of people, it doesn't make sense. It's not enough to just tell yourself you can whenever you know you can't. You have to actually know you can despite having never done it before. So how do you just know you can do something you've never done before? Well, there's 3 things you can do. One, and this is not something you can really do on the spot, this is something you kind of work up towards. The first thing is just by preparation alone. The more you're prepared for anything, the more confidence you have in that thing. So the more you lift weights, the more, as time goes on, the more you work out, the more you have really tough workouts and you get through, and the more times you hit PRs that you didn't think you could hit before, the more you have prepared yourself for these kind of moments, to where you can look back on that and think that there have been plenty of times when you were going for a new PR, and even though you had never done it before and it might have been extremely hard, you still did it. And so preparation alone just builds a lot of confidence and a lot of self-belief, and this is just something that it's just going to come with time, and you can't really if you're not prepared, then you can't you just can't get any kind of benefit from that. But that is something that just comes, that's just going to come with time and with practice. And that is why athletes and actors, anyone who has to perform anything, or anything really, any career, practice, that's why they say practice makes perfect. And that's because practice really is what builds confidence more than anything else. The more comfortable you get with something, even if that thing is physically uncomfortable, the easier it becomes. Okay, so the second thing, and this is something you can actually do on the spot to get stronger and to kind of create more belief in yourself, is through visualization. And this is something, again, that top performers across all fields do this, and especially athletes do this. So LeBron will he does visualization exercises in his sleep. He's trained himself to have dreams about him taking the same shots every night over and over and over in his sleep. So he's visualizing this, and athletes across in all sports, and even all of the top level bodybuilders have talked about this, how they visualize their workouts, or they visualize the event or whatever it is that they're competing in, and they visualize themselves successfully doing the movement, or successfully making the catch, getting the touchdown, whatever it is. They visualize themselves successfully doing it beforehand, because by doing that, you're engaging a lot of those mental mechanisms that are engaged while you actually are doing the exercise, even though you're not physically moving your body. And believe it or not, it kind of actually stimulates your mind in the same way as if you actually were doing the exercise. So then when you go do it, your mind is just more primed to do that exercise. So that's something you can do leading up. Say if you're going to have a squat PR or a deadlift PR, like for me, if I have a really big, I don't do this with everything. I've only done this in the past with squat PRs and deadlift PRs, because those are so physically demanding that as I'm driving to the gym before the workout, I'll picture myself successfully hitting all my reps at the weight I want to. And I found this to be really useful, especially for, like I said, the toughest exercises that are the most physically demanding. I find it to be more important. And then the third thing you can do, and this is just to physically prime your body right before the lift. So what I mean is, some of the things you can do are, well, for one thing, if you're not warming up properly, which hopefully by this point you know how to properly warm up, but you don't just want to jump into any kind of PR without having warmed up. So a lot of times people will be hanging out at the gym and say you're training legs and you're training with a group of guys, and then you're like, oh, let's see what our bench PR is today, and they go over there and just throw some weight on. Well, that's not a great way to hit a PR. So if you were going to do that, you would want to go through your full warm-up sequence, starting with just the empty bar, and then working up, adding, depending on where you're at, adding 25 to 45 pounds at a time on each side. So, but beyond that, beyond your normal physical priming, one thing you want to do is breathe in a lot of oxygen in between sets. So this is something that Arnold Schwarzenegger talked about in his book, The Education of a Bodybuilder, is that he would just try to breathe in as much oxygen as possible between sets, because not only does it help you recover, but it actually just makes you stronger. Getting all that oxygen in your bloodstream makes you stronger, gives you more endurance, and it does help you recover faster from the previous set. So for me, before a big lift, I'm always trying to breathe in as much oxygen as possible, going, really forcefully getting in that oxygen. And it doesn't matter if you breathe in through your mouth or your nose when you're doing this. You just want to get that air in. It's not so much about taking the slow, deep breaths out. It's more about getting deep breaths in and trying to get as much oxygen in. So then another thing you can do, this is something I picked up from Tony Robbins, and other people do this too, is you just build up a little kinetic energy in your body by just kind of bouncing a little bit. So you know how boxers kind of bounce on their toes? They bounce on their toes when they're warming up, and they're building all this energy in their body. Well, before a big lift, you can do that as well. You can just kind of bounce on you don't have to do this forever. Just do it for like 5-10 seconds, but just kind of bounce on your toes a little bit, and you'll find that you have just a little bit more energy before your lift. So those two things right there, and of course on top of your normal physical priming, will give you, I'm telling you right now, if you go do those, just do the breathing and the bouncing a little bit before your set, and you can instantly gain or add 5 to 10 pounds to your lift. I promise you. So, but when you combine that with the visualization, and of course, having been prepared, you'll find that it's much easier to believe in yourself and to actually believe you can hit new weights. And this becomes a skill that you build to where you no longer you don't have as much doubt about yourself, and you actually find it easier to see yourself lifting more weights and to just feel more confident about your lifts, and you find yourself getting stronger faster and more often. So I hope that helps. If you have anything you'd like to share about that, leave a comment below. And otherwise, I'll see you in the next video.